Okay, everyone, I wanted to do my own video assessment of Selection Day, which is today, November 5th. If you guys remember that line from V for Vendetta, remember the 5th of November. There's about half an hour left in the day here in the Pacific Coast. I haven't been keeping up. I don't know what's going on, who's on the way to winning or who's on the way to losing. Really, there's no winners or losers here in the sense that, these are very paid, very well paid actors playing out a script that's being prepared ahead of them. I wanted to start and break this down a little further. I didn't have a chance to fully break it down on Marduk's musing with Dorje. So I wanted to start with Kamala's chart and just give some more hits on it. She's born in the year of the dragon. This is the year of the dragon now. She is a 2/4 pure generator, and she has 5 overlays. You guys see the red and black here in these areas. So very aware of her role and what she's doing. And as I had mentioned in the video, a very intellectual, very mental person with this defined ajna and head center, especially with the 6447. A lot of thinking, a lot of figuring things out, a lot of detective work for the collective, how to quote unquote improve things or create new laws rather. I mean, she is the right angle cross of laws, number 3. This is someone who wants to implement new laws for the collective. She is ruled by 2 collective channels. She's more collective than she is individual or tribal. She does have that individual format channel down at the bottom, pressured from the root to the energized sacral, 60 to the 3. 60 is where Pluto is. So a lot of adrenaline and intense energy there that is not within her control. It's a channel mutation. And then she has the channel curiosity, the 1156 from the throat to the heads, or yes, Ajna center there. And so she can speak her mind just as well. Obviously, though, not very clearly. All we hear is a lot of word salad, a lot of strategic word salad, complemented by a 2/4 profile impulse, which is to withdraw and then come forth. Usually, 4th lines are very authentic and express forth, their passion and then retire away to be in their own space. But here we have a politician, which is a certain style of acting. And so with that open solar plexus, she plays her role really well. No awareness below the mind, very mindless, very unaware, open emotional and splenic center. So can definitely play the role, whatever it is she's choosing to play out. Has that open G, open ego. And with all those open centers, I will move on to share her shadow chart, because those open centers express as a shadow self, the not self, as human describes. And so here we see the open centers now colored in to see how the shadow self expresses. We see the open heart center trying to prove worthiness of the self. A lot of gates around that ego heart center open, but then she has the defined 40, aloneness, the need to be alone, but an impulse towards the collective. And then we see the open solar plexus avoiding confrontation and truth. There's some anxiously defined gates there, the 55, the moody. And then we have the 30, the gate of desire. The splenic center's also open, holding on to things that are not good for you. So this is, fear management, right? This is not feeling good, needing to feel good or needing to do things or be around people who can help define that center, looking for the feeling good. So a lot of those are all fear gates surrounding that splenic center. So we have gate 50 there, the gate of values. And then we move on to the self center. It's open, looking for love, direction, and identity. She has a defined 10th gate. I don't see the role on this particular page, but that would be her individual behavior. And then we have the gate of extremes, gate 15. And so prone to certain extremes. And then we have gate 1 overlay, an individual gate moving towards the throat. This is her shadow self. You see that the shadow expresses itself forth in several ways, needing to improve, or needing to prove the self, rather, watching out for holding on to things that are not good, for one, and avoiding confrontation with truth. We can see this with the lack of directness in her expression publicly. And moving on to the last chart, I just wanted to run through some of these charts really quickly. The next one I wanted to go over was her transit chart. This should be her solar return or her transit. Let's see which one I picked. This is her, let's see. Looks like the solar return, but it's just the transit, I guess. So she'll be having the 4426, the channel of transmission, very powerful channel. That's the channel that the solar supernova came in on in 1987 to affect Ra, and the whole transmission of human design, and it's sharing with the collective eventually. And so we see in her transits not too many activations. Mostly hitting gates she already has open, looking like it will not define any new centers except for the splenic center, the possibility of being intuitive in the moment and being spontaneous. And it'll define her ego center as well, which would be powerful for the year if she takes on this new acting role in this new movie coming out called The Selection. So moving on to Trump. Now I wanted to express several things in contrast. And I did briefly in the Marduk's musing video. If you guys have watched that, I'm gonna pull up the charts for Trump in comparison. But in the meantime, I'm gonna share that there were a couple layers of astrological interpretations I did. Well, not really, just one layer. And that is, I have his notes too. And that is, I looked at the planets in each of their charts, finding that, looking for rather, which planets in either of their charts were least aspected. And this is real significant because a planet that has no aspect is going to be a planet that has full sovereignty to really hold its power. The more geometry, the more aspects a planet has, the more it is bidden by a web of geometry to other planets, the more held kind of down it is and stressed out in its geometric kind of lighting up. an impact of all those aspects. Whereas again, a planet that is not or has very little aspects, usually at least aspected planet will only have one major aspect. And so that is the case in Trump's chart. It is the case in most of our charts that we have at least one planet that's least aspected. When it's a trans-personal planet, when it's an outer planet, it's significant, especially if it's Saturn or Pluto, the impact of which stands for a comfortability with power and control, and sway with the public, definitely powers of this realm or over this realm to a degree, but really not over the realm, but just powers in it. And so Trump has a least aspected Pluto in his chart, which is very significant and noteworthy of someone who is a giant in this lifetime, whose spirit is very powerful. We don't see this in Kamala's chart at all. She has the least aspected planet, but it's not an outer planet. An outer planet, especially Pluto or Saturn, is significantly strong and historically verified astrologically for most presidents, actually. Most elected, or rather, again, selected presidential actors have a least aspected Saturn or a least aspected Pluto. And this can be verified. This has already been verified in several astrological studies, none of which are coming to mind right now, but I have written down. So this is Trump's human design. You'll catch right away he's a manifesting generator. He is an emotionally defined manifesting generator with that channel of transitoriness. 35, 36, can't stay still, loves to travel, needs to move the energy. No, this is a very powerful being. I mean, how many attempts have there been on this life? More than 2, more than 3? How many do we know about? I mean, is this all part of the act? Perhaps. But regardless, this is a very powerful being. Born on the Cross of Eden, as I mentioned in the Marduk's Musing video, the Cross of Eden wants to create a new Eden. It wants to give Eden another try. And this is Eden version number 2. This is someone with the role that wants to bring a new Eden to the collective. Now, what kind of Eden is this? Well, we know this is a being with 2, 3 connections to the throat, 1762, coming with its own opinions, supported by the details or not. A very potentially manipulative channel, by the way, that's 1762. The 3536 with its direct unconscious energy to the throat is just going to say what it's going to say. And half of the time put its foot in its mouth, especially if it's expressing from the not self. So 4521 from the ego center, this is the money line. This is the capitalist kind of channel. This is also a very, very powerful channel, especially for leadership, especially for control over the collective, transforming the I to the we, and thus bringing forth a large responsibility to the public as a leader, as the leading actor in the drama that's unfolding in a particular movie, reel, or episode that we're in. We're definitely in a volatile time for markets and for economic factors, but really the crescendo of what we're going through now will not be felt until March and perhaps again in September of next year, 2025, year of the snake. Potentially the climax of war intensity will be felt around those times. Now, what else can I say? Nothing too much more to add here. This is a least aspected Pluto chart, and we also have Pluto in gate 33, which is the gate of secrecy. and the gate of the storyteller. So this is, in essence, a very powerful human design chart. We see his north node is actually in gate 45, which is a gate of leadership, and it's exalted. And we already know this. He's already been president before. So none of this is really a surprise. We see such a powerful human design chart here. And going to, there's a couple others I could share. Let me briefly go through those. Here I have a solar return for the years. I recently have started doing solar return readings. Solar return readings are very interesting because for that year, you look at the nodes here, gate 21 and gate 48. These, and that 21 again connected to the money line. And look, that's his north node destiny for this coming year. So again, association with control, the energy of control, the collective. That's a manifestor channel. It's part of a manifestor channel, rather. And it's overlaid in transit as well. And so when I do a solar return, when I look at someone's solar return, as you'll see here, the nodes are the environment for the year. The south node being the first 6 months and the north node being the latter 6 months. And so gate 48 and 21 actually represent his environment, not necessarily him, but his thematic environment. Whereas the personal planets represent individual people that will come into his life for him to say yes or no to, but they will also be in his surrounding environment. The outer planets will be themes, lessons, and education that will come in. And so we see he has a lot of these gates coming around, and the 45 again repeated here in transit on his Mercury, and several very interesting gates for his solar return. I'm not trying to do a total solar return reading, just share a couple insights with different charts. Let's look at his, I did the storyline for his nodes, but this storyline is just for his basic nodal chart. And so it just, again, as I've mentioned, just to underscore even further, there's that north node in the personality side, gate 45, line 5, exalted, the tribal leader, all gathering together must have a center and a focus. This is Uranus exalted. He doesn't have Uranus there, so we can safely ignore that. And then the south node, the ability to foresee and plan for the end of standstill. This is the gate of caution, gate 12. This is a gate on the throat. This is very cautious before it speaks. Of course, we don't really see much of that anymore. This is someone who has become comfortable with their voice to the point where they could fully express themselves authentically in the moment without fear of reprisal. But there must be some fear at this point. I mean, this guy's been dragged right through the mud in terms of legals and being charged for this, and that, but he still seems to speak his mind, so maybe he's been able to continue with his lack of fear and ability to represent his authentic self, or his authentic acting self. So that's it. I'll say a couple more words and notes about this particular selection for November 5th. As most of you know, on some level, it's, at least as I see it, it's a no real regard who wins this selection. It's, after all, a show that's put on, a smokescreen of sorts. Who knows what kind of manipulations are going on right now in this moment, behind our eyes and hidden from us, that are going to affect us in the future. The amount of Lucian energy that is being fed off the public's polarity and need to identify with one side or the other is creates so much energy to hide whatever it is that could be occurring and happening. I'm not paying too much attention to the news these days, so I'm not attempting to really penetrate into too many rabbit or constellation lapis holes in order to see what that is. We know what it is. It's always the same thing. It's an electronic grid, being put so that we are totally controlled without any need or impetus by collective leaders, but rather just controlled by implemented technology, that's continues to go forth, as we know. And I'll leave with a new phrase I want to establish. The freedoms and the prisons are in the mind. And so that is where we must find the flame of soul and self-consciousness. The best to you all. I'm Meten on Plutonic Plains, or Mario. Thank you for watching this, and the best to you all on this night.